Hey guys, how are we doing? Back on another video from Totally Not Mark. I decided to skip the behind the scenes video for Dragon Ball Z Abridged because of the issues I had with the first two. I felt like no one would really be interested in watching the third one, but if you are, let me know in the comments below because I do want to check it out as a reactionary video. But I seen this and I'm like, whoa. Problems with power levels. I love watching power scaling videos and I love watching, like, you know, which characters win, blah blah blah. And I want to see what his perspective is on problems with power levels, considering he did like power level videos and stuff in the past, and we've had debunk videos on Totally Not Mark's power level videos from South Programmer and that. So let's just get into the meat and potatoes, shall we?
Power levels. Are they important? A lot of people sure seem to think they are, and a whole bunch of others really don't agree that they are
Not
at all.
for narrative.
Some of you, I'm sure, are aware. A while back, I made an entire series trying to calculate the exact power levels of different characters, and it was a fun little time. With my final verdict being that they don't much matter, and on a number of occasions I've made videos addressing this particular section of the online fandom that seems to be transfixed on an individual specific power number beyond anything else. That's right, Scouters! Numbers! Numbers! Dragon Ball Z is all about them apparently, and as soon as they lost track of those said Scouter numbers, the plot started to lose consistency, right? Well, yes, but it's a little more complicated.
Yes, but no.
To me, those numbers honestly don't much matter, to a degree. Today, I want to look at what power levels mean in the story, how integral they are in almost every single shonen battle series, and to demonstrate this, I will be using Dragon Ball as my guinea pig. Right. Power levels are one of the most divisive and popular topics to discuss in this community.
People love it.
Today, I'm here to see just how important they really are.
Okay.
9,000!
Ah! Over 9,000!
Dragon Ball Z was filled with postulating at each other, screaming and making sure everyone knew just how strong they really were. And eventually,
there's so many remixes
we learned
of
about
memes.
Scouters, a mechanical power reading device that gave each character a number representing how strong their energy level was relative to the rest of the cast.
Which was cool at first.
In other words, the bigger the number, the stronger the guy.
Yes.
It made things absurdly simple, which was intentional for a number of reasons,
well,
creating a very easy to understand dynamic for everyone who
until
was watching
Frieza
to
went
get behind.
full form.
Again, this seems overly straightforward and not particularly revolutionary, so why is it so divisive? Well, there seems to be a divide online between those that deem power levels to be important and those that think power levels are bullshit. I mean, check it out, right? I put up this poll on Twitter simply asking the question if they were important, and even that was enough to start a flame war in the comments section between both sides of this argument. And the reason is, both sides of this argument are arguing past each other. Both are correct and wrong at the same time.
Wow.
So, to kick things off, let's look at why power levels are important in a show like Dragon Ball. If you're new to anime, or more specifically Dragon Ball, you'll soon realize how important the strength of any given character within that show is. Or, more specifically, in the case of Dragon Ball, how big their power level number is.
Yes.
Broadly speaking, this sense the audience is given for how strong a character is a vitally important aspect.
It would have
of
got
what makes
boring
a
if they kept
captivating,
doing that
but more
the whole
importantly,
time,
what
though.
makes a fight scene work. This sense of context given in these scenes, how strong a character is relative to another, is called subtext in the case of Dragon Ball. Subtext is a deeper meaning derived by the viewer that the writer didn't directly express through dialogue in that scene. For example, during the 22nd World Martial Arts Tournament in early Dragon Ball, this subtext is the reason we know Goku is extremely strong and on another level long before fighting Piccolo Jr. in the final. It isn't directly said, but through context clues and clever framing,
we figure it out.
It's communicated to us long before the two square off.
Yeah.
One of the single most annoying things overconfident writers do is to fill their scenes with complex dialogue ramblings. When a writer thinks complicated language is complex and therefore makes a story complex, my head falls into my hands.
Yeah.
A story isn't complex just because the language
we don't
is
need to be
complicated.
spoon-fed
In fact, I'd argue it's
everything.
convoluted, overly simplistic, and viciously uninteresting. Telling a viewer how to feel is the quickest way to make a story insufferably boring. In other words, if the story doesn't have subtext, it's going to really struggle to find its own legs. This show don't tell part of storytelling has unfortunately become something something of a meme lately, but what it actually adds to a scene is staggering. If the viewer or reader can discover for themselves through subtext and context clues what is being
prefer that kind of storytelling.
they can enjoy the product much more easily. It's the difference between lecturing and experiencing. And a great example of this can be observed with our introduction to Frieza. People are cowering around him. He sits on this floating throne. His minions are doing
how intimidating he is by his presence alone.
From his actions and the subtext of the scene, we can understand that he is incredibly powerful, dangerous, and
you don't have someone with a scowl going, oh my god, his power level's like 10 million!
Hey, I'm Frieza. I am the single strongest person in the universe. I am hoping that this will intimidate you so that you give me the Dragon Ball easier. But what does this have to do with power levels? Well, everything actually. And it's all to do with subtext. The fight between Vegeta and Goku in the Saiyan Saga is one of my absolute favorite fight scenes of all time. I made an entire video explaining why I think it works so well and why I love it. And through making that video, I discovered a hefty number of people preferred the rematch in the Buu Saga. Not only do I disagree, but I actually never really loved that fight. If a fight is great, it should work both in the manga and in the anime. And I'm not saying their fight doesn't work at all in the Buu Saga, but I am saying that if you take the nice animation supplied from the time period and replace it with the original manga version, it loses, I think, a lot of its luster, and the more entertaining fight between the two becomes all the more clear. At least to me. And this is all thanks to context. Now, there's absolutely nothing wrong with preferring the second fight to the first. Again, at the end of the day,
it's a good fight.
entirely subjective. And there's plenty going on in terms of character in the second fight to hold your interest.
Yeah, there's so much going on with Vegeta.
And with his new tie to Babidi and Buu and whatever. But for me, there's virtually no sense of how strong someone is relative to the next, at least compared to their first fight. Prior to their second fight, there's no context. There's no set of circumstances that illuminate to us just how strong everyone is relative to each other. Vegeta says he's weaker than Goku. Vegeta says that Gohan isn't as strong as he used to be. Goku doesn't say how strong he is at all, which is actually good. But the two fights we do see prior to Goku and Vegeta fighting are just squash matchups to demonstrate that the Z Warriors are on another level entirely to what Babidi was prepared for. Which is a cool little visual, but tells us nothing about them. We get some indication that Vegeta isn't happy with his standing compared to Goku once he stomps his way through Yakon, but that's it. He then gets Babidi magic to make him stronger. How much stronger? I don't know.
We don't know.
How much stronger was Goku than Vegeta before Babidi's magic? A lot? A little? There's
we have
honestly
no idea.
No way of knowing this. In the Saiyan Saga, we all have a clear understanding of how strong everyone is. And it doesn't depend on scouter numbers either. Even if you take them away, it still works. Through fighting with Raditz, we know that Piccolo is roughly the same level as Goku. Gohan is stronger than all of the Earth's fighters, but it's conditional on his mood. And once the fight with the Saiyans takes place, we get a preliminary set of matches with the Z Warriors,
which was class.
And since each Cyberman is the same level, gauging how strong each fighter is relative to each other becomes an extremely easy
It's really easy for all of us as the viewer to understand.
The same opponent. Piccolo is far, far stronger than Yamcha. Tenshinhan bypasses the Cybermen entirely and fights Nappa. All these choices tell us something about the characters and how they fight and how confident they really are. How their abilities work, and when emotions become involved, how strong they can become skyrockets. Because we know that Piccolo improved since his fight with Raditz, when Goku shows up, we have a terrific sense of just how much more
power levels aren't important,
he arrives and takes
but the setup before a major fight is where I think we're going with
Vegeta,
this.
We can only assume how much more powerful Vegeta is then.
We need it
established.
established.
This comprehensive understanding of how strong
instead of just being
is
told
relative to one another helps the fight itself between Goku and Vegeta feel less like a squabble between two men and more like a titanic clash between two demigods. So, why are power levels not important? A scouter is a physical manifestation or prop used to illustrate one thing and nothing more, to show us all how short-sighted the villainous cast truly are, refusing to hone or listen to their abilities and senses, instead relying exclusively on this mechanical device to advise them on how capable a fighter is that they are about to square
Vegeta
off
charged
against.
up, he's like, wait, what? He can hide his
It's
level.
an absurdly simple metaphor. It's never directly said to our faces, but again, because subtext is important, how many times do you need to see a scouter explode off some guy's shocked and terrified face to understand that they are essentially useless in combat outside of maybe helping you to locate someone? But then again, that's still a technique that's possible to learn in Dragon Ball, but whatever. Point is, scouters specifically are a narrative device used to emphasize the bad guy's shortcomings, to show that true passion, tenacity, and skill can overcome natural ability and evil, and to tidy up some loose ends here and there when appropriate. We don't need to understand exactly how strong Goku is in numerical expression expression to enjoy a fight, no
But-
one did for Gohan's fight
No,
with
that's
Cell,
true.
and it was
That's
one of
very
the most
true.
popular clashes in the
God
show's
damn.
history. And
Gohan
that
just
in and of
annihilated
itself
everything, and you were
highlights
like,
what is
whoa,
actually
because
important.
there was so
An
much build
understanding
before
of how
it.
strong a character is relative
Those
to
Cell
those
Juniors
they
were beating
engage with
everyone
throughout
up,
the
and then
story.
Gohan beat them
if
up.
you
It just
really think
shows
about
it.
If literal power levels actually mattered that much, then that would mean that the fights in OG Dragon Ball wouldn't be anything to write home about.
Yeah.
And let me tell you one thing, they're amazing, and they absolutely are. Effectively, dishing out the information to a viewer through subtext for them to then infer themselves is the key to building excitement, tension, and epic fights. I'm going to run through some good and bad fight scenes now in Dragon Ball to point out why some of them work and others don't.
Okay, that's fine.
At all. The
There we
whole
go.
reason the Namek and Frieza saga worked as well as it did was largely due to the tension the story effectively implemented. But one mechanic that dictated a lot of that tension was in fact the sense of power each character emitted. For instance,
Yeah.
the first opponents Krillin and Gohan face off against on Namek weren't someone that was stronger than them. They were two grunts that show up and try
Yep.
to take them down at the very beginning.
And they just
but
go
both
boom.
are quickly discarded. This served two functions within the story. To set a baseline in terms of
Yep,
power for the
baseline,
two
and then
at this
who's
point in the
next?
story, Gohan and Krillin, but to also let the viewer know and the characters know that they have scouters like the Saiyans did on Earth, meaning they'll find them too if they're not careful. And so, using this information and their own abilities to sense ki, they now know the world is filled with impossibly strong opponents, and thus the hide-and-seek cat-and-mouse game.
Oh my god,
begins.
Frieza Saga is so good. Yeah.
The
Take
fights
that.
in Resurrection F are an absolute unmitigated mess. And before I get into
Yeah,
this, I need to make it known
they
that
are.
I'm not saying involving classic characters isn't nice. It is.
It's a
But
nice
it needs
touch.
to make sense first.
Yeah.
Why is Roshi involved? Surely he would die. With no explanation or context clues, he's involved and no one seems to
I mean, he
question
takes
anything.
them down.
Additionally, we have no idea how strong the actual
Yeah, we
Frieza
don't
force here
know
even
what level
is,
they're at.
So why are they fighting? It'd be like if the Saiyan saga started out with 1,000 Cybermen and they kept fighting them in groups for 5 episodes. That sounds ridiculous, right? And when Goku fights Frieza in his base form, they
No
literally
sense.
talk during the fight about how strong they are now. Both during and before the fight. Not just to show off as is common in Dragon Ball, but to actually inform the viewer because we have no idea how strong the guys are otherwise.
In all fairness, though,
And that's
Goku does
pretty
keep
much
building
why
his
that
base
fight
form up.
doesn't work. The fight in DragonAll Super Broly worked because we got to step through the various forms like
Yes,
building blocks.
they kept
or stepping
leveling it
stones,
up, didn't they?
following
That-
Broly's journey to
I
discover
get
how
that.
strong he really is and can be. Instead of that movie
But Goku's
having a
base
villain
keeps
beginning the
building
fight, setting
through
the benchmark, Broly is
everything.
actually on the back foot, which changes the entire dynamic of the fight on a fundamental level. And as Broly scales higher and higher, the movie respects the audience's ability to understand the levels of transformation and that each
This is a
level
really
represents a
good
higher
example. The
level
Broly
of
movie is a
physical
really
output.
good
There's
example
also
of leveling.
significantly fewer moving parts, which makes the fight a lot better, I think. As many of you know, I spent an ungodly amount of time going through Dragon Ball Z
Yep.
recently, which is
Ah.
utterly
He
filled to
even
bursting
blanked
with
it
fight scenes
out.
that have no
GT
sense of context,
so
weight,
bad.
or tension with regards to the fighters involved. At the very end, Omega Shenron is fighting Goku in Super Saiyan 4,
Yep.
and he is decimating him.
Yeah, he
But
is.
later in the fight, we see base form Kid Goku holding his blast back, because the audience, and I'm assuming the writers, have no idea how strong these two combatants actually are, and the only ideas they had were of a cool snapshot scene, but they had no idea how to make it work
Make it
in the internal
sense of it.
logic of the
It
fight.
don't
Thus,
make
it
sense.
becomes impossible to make a compelling fight scene with Dragon Ball Z. Even if you want to look
Bleeps it
elsewhere, other
out.
shows give the viewer that context that colors the entire show thereafter. One Punch Man has a ridiculously easy to understand power system.
Yeah, it's simple.
Simply put, if Saitama tries,
He wins.
And
Yeah.
this is quite literally established at the conclusion of the very first scene in the story. Vaccine Man shows up, posturing as a top-tier villain, displaying
just turns
all
up
the
and punches
power
him.
and strength a substantial threat might very well have, and without a second thought, Saitama flicks him out of existence. This acts as a very simple message to the audience.
Yep.
That Saitama is, quite literally, if he so chooses, the One Punch
The One Punch Man,
And
yeah.
now, with that knowledge, the
Okay.
audience has a very different dynamic with Saitama every time he's on screen. Instead of wondering if he will win, we start to look at each cocky villain he encounters, waiting eagerly for the moment they realize just how screwed they really are.
Yes.
In Dragon Ball, power levels, as we know them, were introduced as soon as the character Frieza had his presence felt in the series. They were certainly a fun sight to behold, and don't get me wrong, a large number of people, myself included, can have fun trying to figure out how insanely strong characters have become come throughout the show using their provided metrics. But Dragon Ball and other battle shonen have much more important power systems to concern themselves with that affect the narrative directly. And while I don't think the size of someone's literal battle power level matters as much as others might think, the Scouter power levels did happen to be the canary in the coal mine when it came to consistency in Dragon Ball.
Yeah.
As soon as it became more difficult to gauge the strength of a character, i.e. in the Android saga and thereafter, the viewer's ability to make sense of how strong each character was relative to each other suffered greatly. And as explained earlier in the video, having a comprehensive understanding of this is essential if you want your audience to get involved and to understand the standings
You do
of
need
a
to
given
set that
altercation.
baseline
This
every
is why
time,
in the
don't you?
Android saga and thereafter, we are greeted by more superficial power boosts than there ever have been in the series before. I say superficial because we don't actually know anything about their strength, we just know that they are stronger.
Yeah.
And as we traverse into later sections of the Buu saga, Dragon Ball G, and eventually Dragon Ball
Keeps it out
Super,
every
the
time.
issues exacerbate exponentially.
I love it.
And that's incredibly unfortunate, I think. Dragon Ball Super and even G had some interesting fights, but they were often bogged down by lack of subtext
so
and
funny to
overall
me.
understanding. And so while numeric power levels are not important by design, and understanding and respect for the importance of power levels is. Thanks for watching.
Really threw me. I'm so sorry, but he bleeped out every time he's tried to say Dragon Ball GT. It just was beep. That's amazing. Oh my god, that was good. That's some very valid points there. Oh my god, that was great. Yeah, he's not wrong though. Like, if you want your audience to understand, don't tell them everything. Like, let them figure it out, but set up how strong everyone is. Don't just tell them how everyone is. It's more enjoyable that way. Visually understanding that is so much better than being spoon-fed it. And yeah, that's my favourite type of storytelling. Breaking Bad is just such an incredible, like, I know it's not Dragon Ball Z with scouters and people going power level, but Breaking Bad doesn't tell you everything that's going on. It just, like, gives you little bits and you figure out as you go, and it makes it such an enjoyable story to watch. And yeah, I get where he's coming from with that. Like, you gotta set up how strong everyone is to understand it, otherwise it's just nonsense. But anyway, thank you guys very much for watching. What do you guys think of that? What do you guys think of this? Click like, subscribe if you haven't already, leave comments down below, let me know what I should watch and discuss in future videos, and I'll see you guys, all you guys, next time. And if you do want me to react to the third part of the behind the scenes of Dragon Ball Z Abridged, let me know, because I just feel like the situation with my laptop just messed those first two up so much that people would be put off, but I think we're good now. So anyway,